Thank you for following the Australia for Jesus project. Since Australia for Jesus has started, many Christians have come forward and wanting to be mobilised and trained to go out and share the gospel. We've seen many people come to faith. There is a great momentum happening with Australia for Jesus right now. Because of this momentum, there's a need to resource this movement. We're running a crowdfunding campaign. If you would like to help empower, equip, and mobilise more Christians to go out and see people come to Jesus across Australia, please press the button below, which is red, that says donate, and make your financial pledge to this project, either as an upfront or a monthly payment. Australia for Jesus is led by Tony McLennan. Tony McLennan is the former CEO of Bible League, which he ran for 5 years. When he ran Bible League, he met with many Christians and pastors. He spoke to them about the need for overseas mission, but one thing he found that many pastors were disillusioned that the gospel wasn't getting as great an impact here, and new people were not coming to faith as much as people had hoped. Because of that, Tony formed a team of Australia for Jesus, and that team is to train, equip, and mobilise Christians to go out and share the gospel. Tony is now appointed as the CEO of Australia for Jesus, which has a board, and that board governs this new movement of seeing people come to faith through the presentation of the gospel. This group of people were deeply moved by the great number of lost souls in the nation. There are many people who have still not heard the gospel. They've either heard a partial part of the gospel or they haven't heard the gospel at all. Tony personally believes there's a great need for people to hear a clear and compassionate explanation on how they can be saved. It's a life and death issue. And for people to be saved, they need to hear the gospel because it's the power of God until salvation. Tony's first intention was to go out and set up a movement of soul winners and raise up 10,000 soul winners. A soul winner is someone who is intentional about sharing the gospel and seeing that person come to faith. The 3 P's that direct this movement is first, praying for the lost; second, presenting the gospel so people can respond and be saved; and third, discipling those people through what's called spiritual parenting, or parenting new believers, and helping those people have a walk with Jesus. To start this movement, it all started with the God Revolution, and a God Revolution is the series of videos that acted as a rallying cry to see people who are Christians, who are hungry to see the gospel go out, to come forth and register their commitment to become a soul winner. These videos were put through Vision Christian Media, Facebook, YouTube, and these videos have received well over 100,000 views now. Because of that, there was a lot of traffic directed to an online campaign for people to sign up as a soul winner and register their commitment to be a soul winner. Since doing that, 3,000 Christians have registered their commitment all over the country from lots of different churches to become a soul winner. When the soul winning network was created, there was many activities basically put in place to help fuel the soul winning network to go out and share the gospel. For example, there was church-based training run at local churches, and Tony believes that these things should strongly happen through the local church. A lot of these Christians from the local churches wanted to inspire each other, so there's been a connecting of the soul winning network. There's been online training for people who can't make some of the physical events, so there's training sessions as to make people more effective at sharing the gospel. There's been cafe meetups where people get together and pray and talk about how they can share the gospel more effectively. And then there's been Pray for Souls prayer meetings, and these prayer meetings have been specifically for people praying for lost souls in our friends, family members, and also in our regions. And the last prayer meeting online had well over 100 people praying for souls to come to Christ. Since starting Australia for Jesus only 9 months ago, there's been an uprising of large numbers of Christians wanting to go out and share the gospel. It's become a movement. Because of this movement, more Christians wanted to get involved, and they decided to take the gospel to the streets. Tony was invited to help a church in Chatswood, and they decided to start running campaigns locally on the streets at Chatswood Mall with the Way of Life campaign. The Way of Life campaign is a presentation that is simple to run. It engages people with questions, it's not pushy, and it then leads people to a presentation of the gospel, and it can be conducted on people's phones. How this campaign works is people get together and pray. They pray for their campaign efforts and going out and sharing the gospel. And they go to different parts of a street or region, and they go and share the gospel with these questions to engage with those people and then present them the message on their phone. After they finish that person has an option to respond, to follow Jesus and say a prayer. And even if they don't, they can actually reconnect with that person who shared the gospel. And there's an opportunity for those people to register their details and get an email with the presentation and the next steps about exploring a relationship with God. And those people are then followed up to be invited to a church where they can explore God more through a course, whether a Christian Explain or an Alpha course or whatever that local church runs. Since running these campaigns, there were 4 trial sessions that were conducted. These sessions were about 2 hours long, and in that period, 90 presentations of the gospel were made. Out of those 90 presentations, 35 people went through the presentation and made a decision to follow Christ and pray with the person presenting them the gospel. Because this trial was so successful, people heard about it and they started to come forward and ask how they could get involved. Because of that, this brings us to our next phase of the project. Tony McLennan is now raising up campaign leaders all over Australia to run local gospel campaigns. While Australia for Jesus is about our friends and our family and praying for those people, there are people who are wanting to get involved on the streets of Australia and go out and share the gospel also. And these are the Way of Life campaigns by taking the gospel to the streets. To run this next phase, there is more resourcing that's required. If you would like to help empower, equip, and mobilize Christians to bring many people to Jesus, please make your donation by pressing the red button below. The types of things that are needed to be happening over the next 12 months will be training and webinars, development of resources. There are ministry roles that are now being formed to activate this network into soul-winning activity. Local campaigns are getting set up in all different parts of Australia that need to be resourced and managed. Tony is doing a lot of travel, and there's been a creation of management resourcing that needs to happen to manage all of this business administration, organisational administration. There are people out of New Zealand wanting to set up New Zealand for Jesus, so there's a need to set up all the infrastructure and resources around that. The testimonies that we filmed for Australia for Jesus have been of great impact, so there's a need to rehire a video production specialist to then produce more of these testimonies in Australia and New Zealand. And also, we've actually trialled sharing the gospel with the Way of Life online. And in a short trial, we saw one person immediately respond, register for the presentation. Tony got in touch, and that person was then connected to a local church, and they were interested in getting baptized. So we really hope you can get involved with this campaign. Australia for Jesus is a movement all about sharing the gospel and seeing people come to faith. And we need your prayers, we need your involvement, but we also need the financial support. We're looking to raise initially $50,000 to resource this project. And this resourcing will cover lots of different areas, like I said, the ministry roles, the administration, setting up New Zealand, all the training that happens with the local churches and so on. If you would like to make your donation towards this project, please press the button below this video. There's a big red button there. It says donate now. If you click on that, it'll open up a form. And in that form, you can choose an upfront payment or a monthly payment, and you'll be then taken to the different options of making your donation. Australia for Jesus has a tax-deductible part to it through Australian Christian Media. And you can get a tax-deductible receipt, which is timely for June. But there's also, you can do a direct transfer into a bank account as well, which is the Australia for Jesus Project bank account. So there's a few ways of giving. So if you would like to help resource this project further, and if you have a heart for the lost, if you have a heart for seeing people come to faith, and you'd like to equip and mobilize more Christians to get out there and share the gospel, please make your donation now by pressing that button below, going to that form and starting your process to giving towards the Australia for Jesus project. We thank you for all your support and prayers today. We look forward to seeing what Australia for Jesus can do over the coming months.